Bibles with me to Acts chapter 23. We're going to be beginning today in verse 12. But by way of review, I want you to remember that the Holy Spirit continued to tell Paul that he was going to go to Jerusalem. He was going to be bound in chains. Many people told him that, and he said, look at you crying and weeping. I'm not only ready to be bound, but to die for Jesus. Now notice, here's the thing we need to notice. Paul was ready to die in order to be a witness for Jesus. And yet the church today seems to want to be a witness for everything except for Jesus. Now I'm not trying to be mean, because I would never want to harm or put my hands on the true church. But what are we trying to be a witness about? What is it that we're learning about so we can give evidence and testimony to? Paul gave his entire life. Once he found out that he was serving the wrong purposes and was still serving the law and that Jesus was the Messiah, he did everything to take all of that was in his life and to count everything dung that was no good anymore, and everything else was a living testimony, a living witness of who Jesus was and what he had done for the world, so that people could come to salvation and souls could be won. So he goes to Jerusalem. We're going to see even in today's text that he was bringing a gift. He had been taking up money. The reason there's 9, 10, 12, 15 guys traveling with him is because many of the little churches had sent money back to the Jewish people in Jerusalem, and they had a couple guys carrying it, protecting it. They wanted to make sure their money got there. So they're all traveling together, and Paul's discipling them, and they're bringing funds back to Jerusalem. He gets there, and in order to really keep the peace and win his brothers to Christ, he gets there, and here's James and them, and they're saying, hey, there's going to be some problem here. Some of these guys have heard you're coming, and they've heard that you're teaching against the law and the traditions. And so why don't you do this for us? Why don't you go out and take these 4 men that have made a vow to God and pay for them to be purified and spend time in there and be in the temple so that they see that you indeed keep the law. So Paul, trying to win all men to Christ, he does this. He's trying to keep peace in Jerusalem. It's the Passover. There's millions of people there, millions of Jews there. And some Jews that were in Asia, the ones that were trying to hurt him and kill him before, they see him and they start screaming and yelling, and they slam the door shut. And they grab him and they're beating him and they're going to kill him. And the commander, Lysisus, comes down with 200 troops and they rescue him. And then Paul's allowed to give. As they get to the steps, Paul said, can I speak to him? He speaks to him in the Hebrew language. And what does he do? What are you people, crazy? No. He begins to tell them his testimony. He begins to give witness of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he clearly tells them how he met Jesus, and how Jesus is the Messiah, and that Jesus has called him and sent him to the Gentiles. But as soon as they hear that, they begin to shout once again, away with such a man. See, they thought Gentiles were dogs, and they treated them as such. And so they said, away with such a man. And so the commander takes him in, finds out that he's a Roman citizen, and now he's got him under arrest. He doesn't have any charges. And you can imagine this commander who had bought his citizenship. He's standing here going, I've got an uncondemned Roman whom I almost beat. I've got him chained. I could go to prison for doing this. I need a charge. I need some reason to keep holding him, or I'm going to have to release him, and then there's going to be chaos. I could lose my job. I mean, you can imagine the things that's going through his mind. So he arranges the next day to take him down and maybe find a charge by bringing him before the Sanhedrin and trying to find out what are they accusing him of? What did he do? And they bring him down, standing before the Sanhedrin, which is made up of Pharisees and Sadducees. And when Paul sees that he can't get a fair trial, he just says, it's for the resurrection. I'm a Pharisee of Pharisees. My dad was a Pharisee. And it causes this great commotion where the commander had to send soldiers down to get him, or they were going to tear him apart. They were going to beat him and kill him again. That's all they have on their heart is murder. Do you know that if you hate somebody, you have murder on your heart? That's what Jesus said. When you hate, These people hated Paul, and they wanted to kill him. And the only thing that was keeping them from killing him was this commander, the Roman government. You know that we have that type of a culture today, where Christians are dying all over the world, being martyred for Jesus more than any time else in the world. And the only thing stopping us from being murdered as Christians in America right now is the government. It's the truth. It's the same spirit. It's the devil who wants to kill anybody who witnesses and gives testimony of Jesus. And that's what the church is called to do, to be living witnesses, living testimonies. That's why in Acts 1:8 he said, "But you shall receive power to be a witness for me throughout Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the earth." That's why the world today is okay as long as you and I stay in here and worship Jesus. And we don't bring it to the marketplace and witness to the living hope that we have in Christ. The witness to the living hope that is in the truth of God. That He has sent a Savior. And our enemy is not the government. Our enemy is not our spouse. Our enemy is not anybody that's flesh and blood. It's a principalities and powers. A spiritual host of wickedness in the heavenly places. It's the devil and his demons. That's the enemy. So that same spirit is still here today that wants to destroy your witness and your testimony. And destroy you and keep you from speaking out loud and be the beautiful feet that bring the gospel of peace to others. No, not peace from war. Peace from God being against you and being the enemy of God. It hasn't changed. It just looks a little different. Nobody's chaining us up and putting us in bonds because of our witness, but they're shutting us up. They're causing us to be quiet because it doesn't look PC. They're causing us never to talk about Jesus outside of these walls, and they give us freedom to worship in our buildings. But God called us to live out loud. God called us to speak out loud. And God says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. How will they hear unless somebody brings them the gospel? So that's why we're here today. As we go through the living Word of God, as we go through the Scriptures, it is to equip us to go out and do the work of the ministry, which is to be servants and to hand out testimony of the gospel. No matter what they do, whether they bind us or kill us, because we know to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. That's the finish line. That's glorification. That's where we want to be. That's the end. That's the more. That's the gain. So, think about this. Paul, who wants his countrymen to be saved, they're almost going to tear him to pieces. He's rescued again, and we come to verse 11, Acts 23. But the following night, so the next day after this happened, the Lord stood by him. Do you know that? Nobody else is standing by him. Nobody else is standing with him, but the Lord is. And if you are giving witness and testimony of Jesus Christ, no matter nobody else stands with you, you and Christ are a majority. He is enough. Notice nobody's there. I was reading that again this morning. I'm like, where's James? Where's Peter? Where's the other disciples? None of them are standing with Paul. You ever felt so all alone with nobody standing with you? Listen, God will never leave you nor forsake you. Notice he doesn't come and say, Paul, I told you, I warned you for the last 3 months not to go there. But he says this, look what he says. God stood by him. He's standing there with him. Our place is to stand, and when we're standing, he'll be standing there with us because we'll be in the right place. And he said, be of good cheer, Paul. For as you have testified for me in Jerusalem, as you have faithfully testified. Listen, that's how he testified. He stood strong. He didn't shut up. He was a witness. So you must also bear witness at Rome. Oh, wow. You mean I'm going to live through this? Oh, you mean this is going to get better? See, listen, I was thinking about this. Now, if God would have came and told me, he's standing and he said, be of good cheer, Greg. Just like you testified today, you're going to testify in Rome. I'd have thought, you know what? Pack my bags. I'm getting out of jail tomorrow. He's getting ready to rescue me. Because that would have been what would have been on my mind. But that's not even on Paul's mind. See, he doesn't tell him that it's going to get bad. He doesn't tell him they're going to try to kill you. He doesn't tell him you're going to be shipwrecked. He doesn't tell him it's going to take months to get, and he's going to be in jail. Well, it's not months, it's almost 3 years before he ever gets to Rome. He just tells him what's going to happen in the future, and then he has to follow him by faith. He doesn't tell him he's going to spend 2 years in jail down in Caesarea, which we're going to see in the next chapter. All because he's being a witness. And as you follow the scriptures with me, listen, he doesn't stop being a witness because he gets arrested. He doesn't stop being a witness because he's stuck in prison. He doesn't stop being a witness because he's shipwrecked. He doesn't even stop being a servant. And he doesn't stop trying to see other people get saved, trying to see their lives change. And he doesn't shut his mouth because they're royalty or because of their position. He realizes that he has the number one thing that everybody needs, and that is the truth of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he has the power of the Spirit in him and the calling of God. And God encourages him here and says, be of good cheer. We're going to do this again. We're going to do it in Rome. So verse 12. Now I'm going to just I got a lot of material to cover, so I'm not going to read through it. There is some of it that's tedious, and it's like a court hearing and all this stuff, and there's a lot going on. So I'm not going to do what I normally do. I'm just going to start reading it. We're just going to do a running commentary. Verse 12, Acts 23, after we pray. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you that you've called us to be witnesses, that you have sent the Holy Spirit to baptize us afresh and anew and to come upon us to be witnesses. And that the way we're witnesses is to walk in your love and to share your Son Jesus with others. Teach us to serve. Teach us to desire your desires. And give us a hunger to be the witnesses you call, so that we can see the people around us come to the saving knowledge of your Son Jesus. We give you praise in Jesus' name. Amen. So verse 12, Acts 23. And when it was day, some of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under an oath, King James, a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. It'll be a long time before these men eat and drink. In fact, they had made up ways where they could actually get out of this oath and get out of this curse without dying. Verse 13, now there were more than 40, number of judgment, who had formed this conspiracy, this plan. They're going to kill. Notice where their heart's at. They're going to kill. They're sitting down talking about it. People who say they're serving God. We're serving God. We love God. But we're going to kill him because we don't agree with him. Conspiracy means a swearing together or a plot. I'm serving God, I love God, and God loves people, but I'm going to kill you. See, that's not the God that we serve. That's not the God of the universe that created us and wants fellowship with us and who is love incarnate. And so, where is the love here in this people who have walked away from God and are playing religion, where they want to kill people who do not agree with them? Have you seen that spirit? That spirit is still here too. It's everywhere. Turn on the nightly news and you'll see a spirit that doesn't want to just disagree with you, but wants to kill you if you don't agree with them. Oh, it's not that bad, is it? Oh, it is that bad out there. And it's going to get worse. In fact, if you think that it's going to get better, you better wake up. The Bible teaches us that it's perilous times that we live in. It's a reduction of strength. It's the end of days. And before the Nazi Holocaust happened, they had to make sure that people hated the Jews. They had to put out propaganda that talked bad about the Jews so that the other people who weren't doing the arresting and killing of 6 million Jews put up with it. And right now, all of that propaganda is going on in America against the Christian people. Oh, it's not either. It's political parties, isn't it? No, it's all a ploy to do away with anybody who stands for Jesus and stands for life. Listen, nothing is political in the sense that it's all spiritual. You can stand around and have a physical battle about Democrats and Republicans, but it's really a spiritual battle about life and death. Are we going to believe in Jesus and follow him, or are we going to follow man and man's government? Are we going to follow a lie, or are we going to follow Jesus? And God is a God of life. And that same spirit is out there trying to kill anybody who wants to have life. Because life is a person. Jesus said in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And anybody that wants to have morality and do things God's ways, it's going to be that they hate them. And the only thing stopping them from killing them is that they can't do it legally yet. Listen to me. You can be of good cheer. God is standing with those who will stand with him and bear witness and testimony of him. And you may think, well, he sounds like, oh man, that's pretty crazy stuff. Oh, it may not be as clear as you think it is today, but it's coming. In fact, in Thessalonians it tells us that we have to be taken away, snatched out first before the Son of Lawlessness can appear. The Christian people are the only ones keeping morality on the planet. There's people out there that think it's okay to kill a baby when he comes out of the womb. I don't like his eye color. He's dead. They don't care if you kill the baby in the womb or out of the womb. They're fools because they've said in their heart that no to God. So people who go to church and people who say they believe in Jesus should not be saying no to God. Although we can be foolish at times. Listen, there's a big plot going on against Paul here, but the same spirit is still plotting against anybody who will stand up and be a witness for Jesus Christ. Because it's the spirit of Antichrist. Interestingly enough, we're going to see that the safest place for Paul to be right now is under arrest. The safest place for him to be is for the Roman government to be protecting him because he's a Roman citizen. He was born, he was designed. Everything that he might have thought was wrong or right in his life, God made it that way on purpose for such a time as this so that he could go to Rome and witness to Nero, the number one man on the planet. And he's going to witness to him, and Nero is going to release him from prison. And then he's going to go crazy, and as he plays a violin, he watches Rome burn. And then he's going to have him rearrested and blame everything on the Christians and begin killing them again. Because of the devil. Because there's an enemy that wants to rob, kill, and destroy. But in all of it, no matter what's going on in your life right now, God is standing with you. You can keep the joy of your salvation. You can be assured that he's not going to leave you nor forsake you. You can understand that all you're called to do is be a witness through it, a witness in it, a witness because of it. Just as Paul is. If you stand in Christ and stand with Christ and live in his strength according to his word, the only thing you can do is gain. To live is Christ and to die is gain. So these Jews band together. They form this conspiracy, this plot. They're going to kill this guy who is teaching against them. Teaching against the traditions and the laws of God. 15. Now you, therefore, together with the council, this is what the men who plotted this, wait a minute, it's 14. They came to the chief priest, Ananias, and the elders. I'm assuming probably, just on my opinion, I'm assuming probably all Sadducees. Remember where the commander just rescued him up in 10 and 11, they're just 10, because he said, I believe in the resurrection, that's why I'm under arrest. So the Pharisees believed in resurrection. So it's probably the chief priests and just the Sadducees. In fact, after the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, most of the time the church was persecuted. It was only persecuted by Sadducees because they didn't believe in resurrection. They didn't believe in angels. They didn't believe in the Spirit. And all they wanted to do was make money and have power and live like the Roman culture. And that's the spirit of Antichrist also. So there's many people that can say they believe in God, but their heart, as we've seen, if you were with us Friday night, the heart is going to be what is judged in the last day. The heart, but when you come before the throne, all of us must appear before the throne of God for judgment. And it's going to be the heart that's judged. And there's nobody else going to be there to be a witness for you. There's nobody else going to stand with you. There's nobody else in the house except for you and God. And it's going to be obvious. There's going to be no wisdom or counsel against God. Just as Solomon, who is a type of Christ, Solomon means peaceful and peace, and he's sitting on the throne room, and these two harlots, which we represent the harlots, come before the throne room. And one of them has given life and still has life, and the other one has given life, and her baby has died because she laid on it. And Solomon judges their hearts. How? One calls him Lord. One says, I'm your maidservant. One, when he's ready to cut that baby in half with the sword, which represents the sword of the Spirit, the Word of God. When he's ready to cut it in half, she says, no! The one who's the mother, the Holy Spirit tells us, says, take it and give it to her, because she was concerned about life. And she didn't care if she had it. She was laying down her desires. She was laying down her prerogative. She was laying down that she was perfectly right as long as that child could live. And that heart shows clear. And that's the way it's going to be at the throne room with us. There'll be no wisdom, no counsel. There'll be no other witnesses in the house. And it'll be obvious whether our hearts are for life or for death. The other lady, she didn't call him Lord. She didn't say, I'm your servant. She said, yeah, cut him in half, because if I can't have it, give it. She can't either. Neither one of us. What a selfish heart to look at some life and say, if I can't have it, kill it. Because I'm so selfish and only concerned about me. And that's what's going to happen in the throne room of God. It's going to be obvious whether we lived only for ourselves or we lived to give other people life, and we was willing to lay down our rights so that others could have life, and that more abundantly. That's the witness of our hearts. And as we stand before Almighty God, today's today to be the witness, not then. Then it will be too late. Today is today to surrender and allow the Holy Spirit to use us as a witness as we die to self and give testimony of life. And lay down our self-life, allow the Holy Spirit to control us, self-control, and use us for His glory so that children can live. And I'll say clearly, there's no way to stand with a party who would vote to kill babies and say that you stand with God. This isn't about political party, but I'll say that clearly from the pulpit, with no apology, that if you're a Christian, then you serve life and you should choose life, and you should stand with anybody that chooses life, and you should encourage everybody to choose life, because Christ would and does and is. So, where are we at? 14 we read. They're not going to eat till they've killed Paul. 15. Now you therefore, together with the council, look at the plotting and the evil hearts that are selfish and want to only make sure their religious system isn't damaged. They're not trying to represent God. God didn't tell them to do any of this. Now you therefore, together with the council, suggest to the commander that he be brought down to you tomorrow, as though you were going to make further inquiries concerning him, but we are ready to kill him before he comes near. What a plot. and I believe it's mostly Sadducees. There could be some Phinos, is that what we would call them? Pharisee in name onlys. Some Phinos here. Might be one Judas Iscariot in the bunch. Not to mention any Mitt Romney names. Sorry, I was just being funny. And listen, I'm not trying to literally draw any comparisons to what's going on, but the same spirit is still in the world today trying to kill the testimony of Jesus Christ. Trying to kill anybody that will stand for life and try to save babies and give the gospel a chance to go out. But even in that same thing, listen carefully, most of the gospel that's going out under the supposed religious rites is a false gospel. Most of the gospel that's going out is going out to deceive and lead us away from a true Christ. So be very careful that you don't follow the spirit of the world that even looks like it's right when it's still wrong. Because it's still separated from God Almighty and testimony for Him. Now here's the amazing thing, is that God is still fully on the throne. He still knows what's going on, and He's taken the fabrics of our lives and every other life and He's sewing them together, and He protects His servant. He takes care of them. Watch what happens. I was reading this and I'm like, this is pretty amazing, Lord. Verse 16. So when Paul's sister's son heard of their ambush. Now listen to that. It's his nephew. Now why didn't the Holy Spirit just say when Paul's nephew? See, there's something going. The Holy Spirit wanted us to know that Paul had a sister, and the sister had a son, and they're living in Jerusalem too. They're there for some reason, and little Johnny's in the backyard playing kickball with his buddies, and these older men don't even notice that this child and these kids are there, and they think they can just make their plans and talk about killing and murdering somebody, and nobody's ever going to say nothing. And God's got Himself a witness, even in that young child, standing there. And then with the natural thing that Johnny does, God does a supernatural act across the planet. And He saves Paul, who hasn't written the rest of the gospel down for us as the Holy Spirit would lead him, so that you and I could get the rest of the letters and understand the gospel a little bit better. See, because God already declared, what did He declare? Paul, I'm standing with you, and just as you testified here in Jerusalem, you're going to testify in Rome. But there's this plot to kill him with evil men who have evil hearts. And so God does this natural thing. Just a young boy. Now listen, his nephew could have been afraid. His nephew could have heard and said, oh no, I'm afraid to go tell anybody. Pay attention to this. This little child was not afraid. He heard their plot. And God does this supernatural thing. It's an ambush. Oh no, my uncle's going to get hurt. I've got to say something regardless. He went and entered the barracks and told Paul, Paul, I heard them talking about it. These men have banded together. They're going to kill you. Well, what else did you hear? When they call for you to go down to be further questioned, they're hiding in wait. They're not even going to eat. They've got a curse against you. Really? What does Paul do? 17. Then Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, take this young man to the commander, for he has something to tell him. So he took him and brought him to the commander and said, Paul, the prisoner, called me to him and asked me to bring this young man to you. He has something to say to you. Look, it's all natural. There's nothing crazy going on here, but just natural life of somebody speaking up when they know. And if you don't speak up when you know something evil's getting ready to happen and you hide it, you're part of that conspiracy. You become part of the conspiracy. Doesn't matter whether you're related and you're the nephew or the uncle, but if you know evil's getting ready to happen and you don't tell somebody, you become part of the conspiracy. In fact, if you go over and look in Romans verse 1 or chapter 1, and you see the list of things that God gave them over to, the heart had murder in it. And he says at the end of that in 132, It wasn't just those who were murdering, but those who approved of murder by being silent and not saying anything. And that's why the church has to step up and be a witness, because we know what's happening on the planet. We know the devil is trying to rob, kill, and destroy. We know the truth, and to be silent, we become part of the conspiracy to kill. When you add into the fact that God has given us His Spirit, He's given us His Word, He's given us His power, He's given us His promise that He'll stand with us. He's told us that if we die, we get to go to heaven and it's gain. There's nothing to fear about the devil and his work. He's been defeated at the cross. Our fear should be placed in reverence to God, who would come and die for us to set us free and pay our penalty, and then would allow us to have credit to do the natural while He does the supernatural and save souls on the planet. But I digress, because you know what? There's no way that I can cheerlead anybody into telling their neighbor about Jesus. There's no way that I can do anything except serve Jesus myself. And as you serve Jesus, let Him put it upon your heart through His Spirit what you're called to do. But I tell you right now, the gospel calls us to be a witness to everybody, to anybody. And the Spirit of God gives us the power and the wisdom to do it. And we don't have to worry about it, because all we have to do is open our mouth. And if we don't, we're part of the conspiracy to destroy. 19. Then the commander took him by the hand, went aside, and asked him privately. Notice, commander's a smart dude. He doesn't allow it to be done out in the open. He takes him aside. He does everything really quietly. Commander's a real smart dude. What is this that you have to tell me? And then again, he might be thinking, maybe I can find some charges. Maybe I can find a reason to release this uncondemned Roman. I got to get out of this mess that I'm in with this Paul guy. The whole nation wants to kill him, and now a little kid comes to me to tell me something. Who knows what's going on in his mind? 20. What is this that you have to tell me? And he said, the Jews have agreed to ask that you bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they were going to inquire more fully about him. But do not yield to them, for more than 40 of them lie in wait for him, men who have bound themselves by a curse, King James, oath here, that they will neither eat nor drink till they have killed him. And now they are ready, waiting for the promise from you. We're just waiting for your word to say, take him down there. Let's see if we can find out what a good charge is. And the word here for curse or oath means to bind together with an oath, but it comes from the word anathema. It comes from the word anathema. And anathema means to be excommunicated, to be cursed forever. In other words, if we don't kill him, God just curse us, excommunicate us from the Jewish nation, and cast us into hell. That's how serious they are about this. So the commander let the young man depart and commanded him, tell no one that you have revealed these things to me. Very smart man. Know the truth. Don't tell anybody you told me the truth. Go play kickball again. I don't know what they were doing. Probably playing soldiers, huh? That's all they've seen everywhere. But they heard. And you know, again, be careful how you treat children. Be careful how you would act like a little child has no part in the kingdom of God. Be careful how you deal with a child that has something to say. Because this young man is being used by God. And age has nothing to do with being used by God. It's a willingness to step up and share what you know. But we also have the other side of the coin is that we wouldn't let this little child step up and start running a Bible study or teaching from the pulpit or telling people what to do just because he heard something. We don't say, oh no, he's a prophet now because he heard somebody talk about something in the backyard. And don't get me wrong, there's some churches out there doing this now. They're listening to 5-year-olds give them the gospel. The Bible is clear that the older saints are supposed to disciple the younger saints. And how do they do that? By serving God, listening to the Spirit, and handing down the Word of God to them. Passing the torch of the sword of the Spirit. You don't do it by making up new ways and saying, I'm the aged and I've got some new plans. Well, all we're doing is handing down the gospel to others. We keep handing the truth. The problem is we keep making up new stuff, and then we hand down a little bit of truth and a little bit of poop in the brownies. You guys haven't heard that one? These kids wanted to go watch. He's going to get real bad there, isn't he? These kids wanted to go to the movies and watch a Disney movie. What's the new ones that are so famous and they're so nice? And anybody know what the new movies are that Disney's putting out? Frozen. It's Frozen. And the kids wanted to watch it, and their parents said, no, you can't go watch that. There's just some bad stuff in there that's not good for your soul. And they get all mad. They said, everybody else is watching it. Everybody else thinks it's okay that there's a character on there that resurrects from the dead and a character that calls himself the I Am. Everybody else thinks it's okay. And the parents stand strong and says, I'm sorry, you can't go watch it. So the two kids get mad and they march off upstairs. And so the dad decides he's going to make some brownies. Pretty soon the whole house is smelling like brownies. So the kids kind of creep back down and they come into the kitchen and they're like, that smells good. So he cuts them both a piece and he sets it before him. And he said, whoa, wait a minute, before you eat of that, I just want you to know there's just a little bit of poop in these brownies. And they go, ew. And that's the same thing with the movies that we watch that has a little bit of poop. And in fact, they're more poop than they are brownie. But we are not awake to see it. And we don't even care because we want to be entertained. It's the same way with the music. It's the same way with the books. It's the same way with everything you see out there. Because why? 1 John 5:19 says, I know you're of God, but the whole world lies underneath the sway of the wicked one. And if we don't lay our hearts down and stop being selfish and only wanting to take care of ourselves and only wanting to be entertained and only wanting to feel good and only wanting to be happy and only wanting what the world wants, we'll follow right along with that spirit and say that we're okay with God, and we won't find out that we're not until we get to the throne room when it's too late. Christ has given us righteousness. It's freely given. It's free to receive. But when you receive it, it comes with the Spirit that gives us discernment and wants to lead us. And as many as are led by that Spirit, these are the children of God. But if we're still being led by the Spirit that's underneath the sway of the world, the devil, we can't be in both houses. We can only be in one. And our heart, in the day, our heart will reveal it. And it will be revealed by fire. So the commander let the young man depart and told him, don't tell anybody. So what's he do next? 23. And he called for 2 centurions, saying, prepare 200 soldiers. Get your men ready, because the centurion was over 100 soldiers. Get your soldiers ready. 70 horsemen and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at the 3rd hour of the night, 9 o'clock, and provide mounts to set Paul on and bring him safely to Felix the governor. Now, that's Jerusalem is where the Jewish people ruled. That's where the temple was. That's where their headquarters were, where the Sanhedrin met. But in Caesarea is where the governor of that Judean province met. And that's where Felix is sitting on the throne, or on the seat of that right now. And Felix is nothing, he's a crook too. I mean, his brother paid off Nero so that he could even be in the seat. But he is the governor at that time. The whole world lies underneath the sway of the wicked one. And he writes this letter in the following manner. And this is the way letters were written in those days, evidently. Claudius Lysisus, which is his name first, to it's from, to the most excellent governor Felix. A little bit of politeness and to who it's written to. So it's from and to instead of to and from. Today we do that to and from, and I don't even know how you do it. That's the way we did it when I was writing letters. Greetings. This man was seized by the Jews and was about to be killed by them. Notice everybody knows they were going to kill him. Hate in their heart creates murder when given opportunity. Coming with the troops, I rescued him. Look what I did. A little bit of pat me on the back. Having learned that he was a Roman, because, that's what he's done. Remember, he's a slave that paid for his citizenship. So this gives him a little bit of brownie points. If he leaves out that he bound him, was going to beat him, he leaves out what he did to an uncondemned Roman and kind of makes it look good for him like he did some good stuff. And I wanted to know the reason they accused him. I brought him before their council. I found out that he was accused concerning questions of their law, but had nothing charged against him deserving of death or chains. He shouldn't even be bound right now. Remember that with Jesus. Jesus shouldn't be bound. They're innocent men. This is what he's declaring. Right now he's given his testimony to Felix. That'll be important for you when we get to the next chapter. And when it was told me that the Jews lay in wait for the man, I sent him immediately to you and also commanded his accusers to state before you the charges against him. So he either wrote them a letter or he told them the same thing after he got rid of him here or sent him down to Caesarea. But he telling them that they were going to murder him, that they were laying in wait. I had to get him out of here. And so he says, farewell. He gives them all this stuff, tells them. Then the soldiers, as they were commanded, because they're under authority, they follow authority, took Paul and brought him by night to Antipatris. Now, Antipatris was a city that was between Joppa and Caesarea, I believe, and it was built by Herod the Great, and he named it after his dad, Antipater, I think, if I'm saying that right. So they get there. The next day they left the horsemen to go on with him and return to the barracks. So he had these horsemen, 471, including Paul, right? 470 soldiers and Paul, 200 spearmen, 70 horsemen. So when they get there, there's going to be 400 of them with Paul, bringing him to Felix. That's a pretty big entourage to be coming in. Remember how he went into Damascus and he had some soldiers and he ends up getting up blind? Now he's in prison, he's being a witness for God, and he's getting this great deliverance into a city. Kind of upside down from what he wanted to do before, huh? And now he's the one being rescued, and he has been being rescued ever since he gave his life to Christ. They had to lower him down in a basket to rescue him out of Damascus, and they've been rescuing him every time. He would have been killed the last time he was in Jerusalem. But God told him by night, get up and leave. They won't accept your testimony. See, the spirit of Antichrist, the devil, is out there trying to kill the witness of saints. So, 400 soldiers bring him, deliver him. The next day, because they're clearly away from Jerusalem by quite a bit away, they left at night. They're under cover of night. They get through the little bit of mountainous terrain that's there in that part of the country, and they get into flatter land, and they send the 70 horsemen home, and then they just take the 400 soldiers. Man, they were really making sure he was safe, wasn't they? This is what God does. He uses the natural to protect you. I was listening to a pastor that's in our movement, and they were taking Bibles into, maybe it was China? I forget where they was taking Bibles at. And there's this whole movement that takes Bibles into countries that don't allow them. And most of the saints, they get to the airport, and they go, you got any Bibles? They go, no. They just lie. And they lie, and he goes, I can't lie. He was a younger Christian. He goes, I can't lie. I just can't lie. I'm right. He's wrestling with it. And he gets to the checkout thing, and he goes, you got any Bibles? He goes, yes. Plumb full of them. The guy goes, get out of here. And he goes on through with all of his Bibles. But God uses natural things, and he honors his saints who are trying to be a witness and get his work done. But what happens is the world makes us afraid, and we don't trust by faith what God is doing. But when you step up to do what God is doing, he's going to take care of you. And if you get arrested, it's because you needed to be arrested to tell somebody else that's already arrested. You're not out of God's hands because something bad happened. In fact, when you're being a witness and you're giving testimony, things are going to happen that seem bad. But you keep talking about and telling about Jesus. What was it in? Was it in China that I heard this years ago. In China, if you become a saint, you believe in Jesus, I think they go home and they pack their bags and they put a change of clothes behind the door because they know that you get arrested if you become a Christian. And they put you in prison. And then when you're in prison, they go, what are you in here for? And they go, for being a Christian. Well, what's that? And then you tell them, and you get to share the gospel. Then when they were released, they made them all mailman. So now they're going door to door, sharing the gospel with everybody they meet. And then when the doors finally opened, we found out that the church was huge. Now, we don't know how much of it is real church, just like in America. Everybody says they're a Christian. But if you're in fear of going to prison and being persecuted and killed for saying you're a Christian, I think it's a little more serious than what we have in the church today over here. Everybody wants to be a Christian, but nobody wants to be a witness. And we're all called to be witnesses. I better quit with some of these old stories that I don't even remember very well anymore. Or somebody will search them out and say that I was making them up. Or what about the one, where was it where I said I should quit, didn't I?
Tell us one more.
Well, I was trying to think of where it was, and I can't think of where it was. Maybe it was in China too, but maybe it was Japan. Anyway, there's a rice farmers, and the rice farmers would come at harvest season, and everybody had to get in line except for the Christians. They could go right around everybody. They knew who you were. They knew who the Christians were. And they knew the Christians were honest, and they wouldn't put a bunch of rocks in their loads. But they had to check the loads of everybody else. But they would let the Christians, because of their testimony, go right around, and they knew there was no rocks in there because they were honest men. And they didn't weigh the trucks down. So I think that, I don't know, wherever they grow a lot of rice at. Amazing. And this is supposed to be our testimony and what they see in our lives. So the horsemen go home. When they came, verse 33 of chapter 23 of Acts, to Caesarea, and had delivered the letter to the governor, they also presented Paul to him. And when the governor had read it, he asked what province he was from. He wanted to make sure that a lot of times you wanted to stay out of it. You don't want to do any work. You just want to govern. And if it was going to bring some type of chaos to his throne or to his attention or to his area, he wants to make sure that the prisoner is actually his. Remember when Pilate tried to wash his hands of it, and he sent Jesus to, where did he send him? Was it Herod sent to Pilate or what? Anyway, he didn't want to deal with it. If somebody else can take the pressure, they let him have it. And that's what he's trying to do. Make sure that this is actually somebody underneath my jurisdiction, or I don't want nothing to do with it. And when he understood that he was from Cilicia, he said, I will hear you when your accusers also have come. And he commanded him to be kept in Herod's praetorium. Now that was a big, nice house where all the diplomats and people stayed. This is not prison. But we're going to find out that he's actually there in this nice plush place, but he's chained. We'll find that out in chapter 26, I think. I think it's 26. Because he says, I would to God that you were as me, except for these chains. So he's probably got a ball and chain on him with a guard with him all the time. Now think about it, because he's going to be in prison for 3, 5, 10 years. We don't even know how many. And he's always got a guard. Think every 8 hours a guard, somebody else to witness to. And we find out later in his letters that all of the house of Rome is getting saved because he's sharing the gospel with all of his guards, a captive audience. They can't leave, because if they leave and he escapes, then they get his punishment. So they got to stay there and listen to him. I love having a captive audience. I used to love it when I do funerals. And they say, Pastor, you going to ride with us, or you going to ride in your own car in the procession? I go, I'm going to ride with you. And so I always love talking with them. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just you got a captive audience. You're in the car with them. They got to listen to you. And you share the gospel with them. And it's just so funny, too, because typically they're the ones that open the door to share the gospel. They'll say, wow, that was a good service, or wow, I didn't know that about them, or wow, there was a lot of people. They'll say something about the service, and it opens the door for you to share the gospel to them. Anyway, let me keep moving here. Chapter 24. Now after 5 days, Ananias the high priest came down with the elders and a certain orator named Tertullus. These gave evidence to the governor against Paul. Now it's 60 miles away. That was the traveling that they did with the 400 soldiers. And now Ananias the high priest, who's a crook, and some elders, which I again assume are probably mostly Sadducees, because nobody else wants to come and accuse him if he starts talking about the resurrection. And then they've hired an attorney. When you look up Tertullus, it's a Roman name. So he's probably a Roman who's some fancy orator who can, get up and fabricate charges and make up stuff against somebody that works out good to try to get them in trouble. And they're given evidence against Paul. And when he was called upon, Tertullus began his accusation, saying, "Seeing that through you we enjoy great peace and prosperity as being brought to this nation by your foresight, we accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness." Now there is some truth there, but it's all flattery. It's all flattery at the same time to try to win favor to this crooked leader who's over him. Now listen, here's a general definition of flattery. General definition that you can use. It's not always perfect. It's what you would say to somebody's face that you never say behind their back. It's not like Tertullus on the way there was talking about noble Felix. They were planning their plot to get Paul away from him so they could kill him. He was hired to get Paul away from him, and I believe the text lines that out. Is that they were trying to get Paul released back to them so they could kill him. They weren't trying to get Rome to kill Paul. They wanted to kill him. But anyway, he's flattering him. And then, of course, gossip is the opposite, right? It's what you say behind their back that you would never say to their face. Well, flattery is what you'd say to their face that you never say behind their back. So oftentimes if you hear me talking about somebody, I'll say to you, I'll say it to their face, because I don't want to be caught gossiping. It's supposed to be funny, not funny. But flattery, and there's nothing wrong. Like, when I tell my wife, "Oh, this is some great food. This is fantastic. This is good." I tell her to meal, and my daughter would always say flattery. And I go, "Honey, it's not flattery, because I tell people all the time how great of a cook your mom is." So it's not flattery when you say it to somebody, if you say it all the time. But if you only say it to manipulate the heart of the person, and you don't say it other times testifying of their character, then it's probably flattery. So you can weigh your own heart that way, if you'd like. Same thing with the gossip. If you couldn't sit down with that person and say what you're saying to another person, then you shouldn't be saying it to another person, because it's evil. So he flatters him. Then he says in verse 4, "Nevertheless, not to be tedious," well, you already have been, wasted time, "to you any further," although he admits it, "I beg you to hear, by your courtesy," you don't have to, wait a minute, that's why we're here, dude. Why are you saying all this? "A few words from us." And that means usually, just like with me, let me talk about that a little bit, it'll be a long time. It's not going to be a few words, it's going to be a lot of words, because he's a fancy orator. "For we have found this man a plague," a pestilence, King James, "a creator of dissension among all the Jews throughout the world." See, he's world traveled, and he's a pestilence to the whole world. We exaggerate. "And a ringleader of a sect of Nazarenes." Now, that's the same thing as saying as Christians. In certain areas, if you said they're Nazarenes like this, and they were serving Christ, then it's just meaning because Christ was Jesus the Nazarite. They're from Nazarene, where, I don't know if you guys remember, Nathaniel said, can any good thing come from Nazareth? Because it was really a war city where there was only troops at. There wasn't really nothing there except for troops. Anyway, it was probably a poor city too. But look what he makes these accusations that he's a pestilence, a plague, New King James. It means disease or a pest. But notice it's against it's not against Rome. They're making the accusations just under their law, just against them. I think they want him to be released back to them so that they can just kill him and be done with him. They don't want him to go to a long trial. And I think this will pan out. They want him to go back to Jerusalem and face trial where they can just kill him under their law with the Romans allowing it. But we're going to see that the Spirit allows Paul to say, I appeal to Rome, I appeal to Nero. And he goes to Nero in order not to get sent back to Jerusalem because he knows it's certain death if he goes back there because they want to kill him. They've already ruled he's guilty. He's guilty. We're going to find something, though. Notice these are ambiguous charges. Notice the charges really don't say nothing. He's a pest. He's pestilence to the whole world. Really? What did he do? Well, he's a pest. He's pestilence to the whole world. Really? What did he do? Well, he's a pest. Sound like some of the arguments we have in our world today. Never really factual evidence being presented. It's the same spirit that wants to kill anything that is good and stands for life. It hasn't changed. It's still here. It's just becoming clearer. The lines are getting separated where you can see it better. Because we're in the last days. So, plague, pest to the whole world, creator of dissension or sedition. It's a mover of sedition to stir up uprisings, to stir up insurrections or uproars. He's popular at doing this. But wait a minute. What did he do? Well, he stirs up stuff. What did he do? Well, he's seditious. What did he do? You mean like these guys that just banded together, 40 of them that said we're going to kill him? There's some evidence. We have a witness that brought it to us that this is really going on. But where's the evidence for this? Well, he's seditious. What did he do? Now notice Paul's going to give his own defense. So see, they just make charges, but there's no evidence to any of them, and they want somebody to kill him. And he's a ringleader of a sect of Nazarenes. Ringleader means one standing first in the rank, a captain or a champion. Listen, we all want to be that champion. Listen, that's why we watch reality TV. That's why we watch games and stuff. We kind of vicariously live through them winning and breaking across the finish line and spiking the ball. We're like, yes! But what about a ringleader or a champion for Jesus? Standing up in the face of death and still giving testimony that Jesus is Lord and God raised him from the dead. What about that kind of a champion that the Spirit of God puts in you? Instead of a champion to be famous in the world and a champion to win gold at the Olympics, how about to win a crown that doesn't perish, that we get in heaven? What about that kind of a ringleader? That's the good charge. They made a good charge against him and they think it's bad. And they don't realize that Felix knows what's going on. Because he's been a ruler for quite a while in this area, and Jesus didn't happen in a corner hidden. That's what gives veracity to the scriptures. Jesus walked down the streets in front of them all and healed people and raised them from the dead. And nobody could deny it. All they could do is kill him. And when we live out loud like that, and we live in the power of God without fear, and we go out and testify, it gives credence to the gospel because it's the Spirit of God. It can't be us. When lives change, it can't be us. Nobody changes. Unless it's gospel, unless it's Jesus Christ. That's the only time people change. Look around. Look around. Do you see people changing who they are? Unless it's because they give testimony of Jesus Christ. pulling them out of prison, pulling them out of drugs, pulling them out of the pit. This is a good charge. He's a ringleader. Well, a sect means a party or to disunion, not in union with. That's why we call, Catholics or Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or, some of these false religions. They're sects. They're out of union with the true facts of the gospel. So they become a sect or an occult. They're not really part of the true gospel. Word of faith, those are sects. These people are not, they're not really the gospel. They're morphing the gospel. They're changing the gospel. They're serving a different Jesus. And if they don't repent of the things that they're saying that are false about Jesus and false about the gospel, their heart is going to reveal it. When they stand before Jesus at the judgment seat, and they say, well, I needed a fifth jet to get the gospel to the world. I had to have all of those $10,000 suits, or I couldn't stand before your people. It's going to be away from me. I never knew you. You who practice lawlessness and wickedness and think that this world has something to offer. And you look for the praise of men instead of the praise of God. It's not wrong to have, but when you think that you have to fleece your flock to get, that's wrong. Verse 6, he even tried to profane the temple, and we seized him. They didn't say, and we grabbed him and started beating him and was trying to kill him. We seized him and wanted to judge him. All we were going to do was judge him according to our law. And according to their law, listen, somebody profaned the temple, you kill them. Blaspheming the temple. But the commander, Lysisus, came by and with great violence took him out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come to you. By examining him, you yourself, you may ascertain all these things of which we accuse him. And the Jews also assented, maintaining that these things were so. So the other Jews standing around, as Tertullius presented this false case about him profaning the temple. And they really said something bad about the commander. Said he took him away from us when it was really a matter of our law. We really want him back. We've been wronged even by Rome by not allowing us to judge people according to our law. So, and there had been some uprisings in the area, and Felix had got rid of a bunch of criminals, and to make it, he knew that he didn't want any craziness going on there, so they're trying to get him to do him a favor and just release Paul. What's it to you, Felix? Just release him to us. We'll take care of him. We got it. He's already took him once, and it was with great violence. We don't know why there was such violence. They were trying to murder the guy. Lysisus was worried he was going to tear him apart. Go down there and get him before they tear him apart. And then they blame somebody else for the violence. And act like they weren't doing anything but trying to judge him according to our law. He says if you examine him, and I don't know tenses, so I don't know if they're talking about by examining him yourself, you may ascertain all these things that we accuse of. It's 8b. I don't know if they're talking about examining Lysisus, the guard, who's already given testimony, by letter, or if they're talking about examining Paul, for sure. But maybe that's why it's the end of his, and then Paul gets to give his defense. He might be talking about by examining and questioning Paul, he can find out. But we're going to see at the end of it, he says, I'll rule after I talk to the commander. So it could be that Tertullius is meaning ask the commander for more evidence, or at least that's the way Felix takes it. Not a big deal. Although Paul doesn't have to say anything under Roman law because there's a law against self-incrimination. So it probably is not referring to Paul. Then Paul, after the governor had nodded to him to speak, answered. So he gives his defense. Inasmuch as I know that you have been for many years a judge of this nation, I do the more cheerfully answer for myself, because you may ascertain that it is no more than 12 days since I went up to Jerusalem to worship. So now, here's Paul. knowing that Felix has been on the, not in this position, but in another position in the region, knows all about the Christians and the sect of Nazarenes, and he doesn't say anything flattering. He just says, I know you've been there and you know things more fully. I went up there 12 days ago. Now think about this for a minute, because 5 days it took for his accusers to come. He was at least 2 days in jail in Jerusalem, which he might have been 3 days actually, because it says the next day. So he could have been 3 days, or at least part of 3 days in jail in Jerusalem. So he's only had 4 days, 5 at the most, to create worldwide sedition. And that's all he's saying is like, wait a minute, I ain't even had time to be there, and I went up there to worship. Now, Felix knows that everybody's there. That's why there's so many soldiers there, because it's the Passover festival. Everybody's coming to worship. He also knows that he has been 15, 14 years and has just now showed up. He doesn't even have anybody there, no army, nothing. So he can see that it's all false instantly. And Paul's just saying that. He doesn't have to make up anything. I went up there to worship. I went up there, worship means proskuneo. It means to kiss the hand. It means to prostrate yourself before and adore, give homage. It's like a dog licking the hand. He's going up to worship God. And he's given his defense. He doesn't have to make anything up. I went to worship God. 12. And they neither found me in the temple disputing with anyone, nor inciting the crowd, either in the synagogues or in the city. Nor can they prove the things of which they now accuse me. There's no proof. There's no evidence. You haven't said anything but make some generalizations. And if he was in the temple disputing, arguing. Remember, Paul went up there to worship. Paul went up there and was being nice and listening to what James and them said. And he said, nor can they prove. There's no evidence of any of these things that they're accusing me. And he doesn't have to give evidence. He's got to write not to testify against himself. 14. But this I confess. Now he's going to make a confession. I plead guilty to being the ringleader to you, that according to the way which they call a sect, so I worship, I serve, different word for worship, a hired menial, a minister to God who renders religious homage and does service. I serve, so I worship, so I serve the God of my fathers. According to the Old Testament, believing, pistio, believing all things which are written in the law and the prophets. Notice where he points. He always points to the scriptures. He doesn't get any of his service, his worship, his ideas anywhere except from the scriptures. This is how I worship. This is what I believe, all the law and the prophets, and this is how I'm serving. Listen, today we are in such danger of so many things outside the Scripture, where we have the New Day apostles, and we have New Age prophets, and we have New Age doctrine. And if it's new, it's not from God, and if it's from God, it's not new. If you can't find the basis of it in the Scriptures, then you want to stay away from it. And if you can't, and you go, well, wait a minute, Greg, well, it doesn't talk about smoking or cars or telephones or, and how do we get count? Well, listen, you follow the basic general character and will of God. He reveals his character, his nature, and his will through his word, which is his authority. And he gives us a basic example of who he is, what he's doing, and what he's going to do. And if it doesn't line up with his character, his nature, his will, and his plans for your life, then it's suspect and you better stay away from it. But then you're led by the Spirit, which gives you wisdom in how to keep your conscience clear before God. And that's what it's going to mainly be telling us to do. See, our focus, where are we toward? What are you living toward? What are you moving toward? See, because the saint was moving toward hell, and he believed in Jesus, and he got righteousness. Now he's a citizen in heaven, and he should be moving toward righteousness. He should be moving toward heavenly things. He should be moving toward coming underneath the authority of God and honoring God. Yet the church today is moving away from God and making up new things for God and trying to figure out a way to worship God and create and stir up a bunch of stuff so that people will come in. God uses little boys in the backyard playing. God uses soldiers taking one man to a place where he can keep him safe. He doesn't need us to make up anything. He's already sewing the fabric. All he wants us to do is bow down and be led by his Spirit and do his will. And he'll sew the tapestry of our lives in the place they need to be. And he'll make sure that our hearts are right the day that we stand before him. And we'll be found in him and receive our reward. By the way, the lady received her child back when she gave him away and said, no, by no means, don't cut him in half. Give him to her. And it instantly revealed the evidence of a heart that was of a mother, that had given life, that had life, that cared for life, that was selfless servant of the Lord. And there was nobody else that needed to witness. Everybody in the room knew who the mother was. And it's going to be the same way before the throne of God. There's going to be no argument, no wisdom or counsel against the Lord. Listen to me, the horse is prepared for the day of battle. But every answer comes from the Lord. You need your strength from him. Where are we at? We'll close up here. So Paul confesses. He confesses, I'm following the scriptures, not man. I confess, I'm following what the Bible says, not what man is saying. I'm following what God says, not what these men who think they're following God say, because they have murder and hate in their heart, and all they're trying to do is have power and strength apart from God. They're not listening to God. He's serving God according to the fathers and everything that's written in the law and the prophets. 15, I have hope in God. Where's your hope at today? See, because his hope's in God, God stood with him and told him, don't worry, Paul. Be of good cheer. That word be of good cheer means boldness. Have boldness, Paul. You can rest in me. His hope is in God. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When we're living by faith, we can put our hope firmly in God and know that he'll bring about evidence that there's going to be proof that you're living for God. You're hoping in God. You're waiting for God. You're worshiping toward God. Everything's toward his ends, his means. I have hope in God, which they themselves also accept, that there will be a resurrection of the dead. A standing up again. To get up, and it actually means a moral recovery of spiritual truth. We need one in the church today. We need a moral recovery of spiritual truth because we're practicing man's rules in the churches instead of surrendering to God's word and his Spirit and being washed and cleansed for his desires. Both of the just and the unjust. And simply put, when you look up just and unjust, just means a righteous person, unjust means an unrighteous person. The only way to be righteous, believe in Jesus, and he imputes his righteousness to you. There's going to be a resurrection of the just that stands before the Bema Seat judgment, and there's a resurrection of the unjust that's going to stand before the white throne judgment. This being so, I myself also strive to have a conscience without offense toward God and men. Now notice his actions. This is what he's striving for. This is what he's looking at. As he worships toward God in God's ways, his heart is also to be right. Everywhere that he thinks, what he does, to be right to God first. And then the man. Listen, it's upside down in the world today. It's upside down in the church today. We're more worried about what man thinks and then God. I'm dressing to please men instead of God. I'm living to please men instead of God. But you should live to please God, and if men is okay with it, now you can have fellowship. But if they're not okay with it, sorry, I'm living for God. My conscience has to be right with God first, then man. And we have to make sure that that is our end game. That since we have now been bought by the blood of Jesus and we're righteous because of Jesus, and his Spirit is sanctifying us so that one day he can take us home and glorify us, then everything that we do should be pleasing to God first and then man. And I'm not talking about, I'm pleasing God, shut up. I'm not talking about being a sailor that thinks that they know God and then still being angry and mean and nasty to everybody else. I mean, it's okay to be at peace with all men as far as you are able, because God would give you the spirit and the self-control to do that and the wisdom to speak to people correctly. But God has to be first and foremost. He will not take second place. He will leave the building. So, my question would be is to myself and to you and to those that would listen, what are you striving to have a conscience before? Is it without offense, without sin? It's not leading to sin, faultless before God, and then faultless before men. That's what he's saying is, I have done nothing to them, and I've done nothing to God, and I've done nothing to them. I was minding my own business in the temple. In fact, I was paying for some other guys to be purified. We're walking through, waiting for the days of purification, and these guys freaked out. Oh, he goes on to talk about that, doesn't he? Now, after many years, I came to bring alms and offerings to my nation. Now, think about that for a minute. I just brought them a whole bunch of money. Am I really against them? Am I causing sedition against them? Am I coming against them? Am I coming there to cause problems when I'm carrying money to give to them? I'm trying to take care of them. In the midst of which some Jews from Asia found me purified in the temple. Felix knows what this stuff means. Neither with a mob or with a tumult. They ought to have been here before you to object if they had anything against me. Where are the guys at that found me that actually started yelling? If the witnesses are supposed to come and testify, where's their witnesses? We're not allowed to reveal a whistleblower. I mean, there's no witnesses because they weren't there anymore. They went home. I'm sorry. I'm terrible, ain't I? Like, once again, no spiritual value whatsoever except that we want to choose life. And if you're a liar and you keep lying, you're of the father, the devil, and that's it. And all you're looking for is your own. You're going to be judged at the white throne judgment. You're going to be cast into hell if you don't repent. And that's everybody that doesn't know Jesus Christ personally and serve him and stop serving self in this world. There's no witnesses. There's no evidence. None of this can be proved, he said in verse 13. They can't prove none of this because I haven't done it. I was peacefully in the temple, worshiping God, taking care of people, bringing money to my own nation so that they could have some things. Verse 20. Or else let those who are here themselves say if they found any wrongdoing in me while I stood before the council, unless it is for this one statement which I cried out standing among them concerning the resurrection of the dead, I am being judged by you this day. And really that is the central theme of the gospel. Because if Jesus didn't get up, we're playing church. If Jesus didn't resurrect and God raised him from the dead, there's no evidence that he was the Messiah. But the resurrection, everything, the blood redeems us and atones for us, but the resurrection is proof that the blood is what it's supposed to be to pay for the sins of the world. But when Felix heard these things, having more accurate knowledge of the way, hear that? He knows about the way. He knows about this sect of Nazarenes. He knows about the people they first called Christians in Antioch. Felix heard these things. He's like, and you'll see later that he actually brings him out just to hear the gospel from him. He wants to hear the gospel. He's warming his hands by the fire, we'll see in future lessons, probably next week. But he says he has more accurate knowledge of the way. He knows about the Christ. He adjourned the proceedings and said, when Lysisus, the commander, comes down, I will make a decision on your case. So he says, continuance, we're going to have a continuance because I'm not giving you to them right now, which God protected him. So he commanded the centurion to keep Paul and to let him have liberty and told him not to forbid any of his friends to provide for or visit him. So he's basically like on a house arrest with a soldier. He's in the praetorium. He's there in a really nice plush place, but he's being held. And remember where we're at. We're in Caesarea. We were just here not too long ago. That's where they went up from when they were at the house of Philip the evangelist. And he had 4 prophets, his daughter. And there's all these Christians there. There's all these people that can come and take care of him. But Felix, who's also an evil man, he's hoping that by giving him access to all of his friends, they like to get payoffs. If all of his friends come, they can just pay me and I'll release Paul. But Paul can now visit with all the Christian brothers and he can keep teaching there. And we're going to see that he's there for like 2 years before he appeals to Rome. So he's there a long time, but he's in this plush place giving the gospel to everybody. We'll see next week. Who are you witnessing to? Who are you talking to? How long has your neighbor lived next door to you and they haven't heard the gospel? What about the people you work by? Listen, we are supposed to be giving witness. Well, I've got all these other questions. When are you coming back? What days are these? Remember, it's Acts chapter 1, and he said these are seasons and things that you don't need to know. But you shall receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you to go be a rock star. To go out and to be a witness to me. And that can look like a lot of things. But it has to be being witness to him and not witness of self. Witness of life and not witness of death. Witness of the coming of Christ and that he's coming back. And the truth of the gospel in the face of evil. And the Holy Spirit will give you that power if you ask. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for your Holy Spirit. Thank you for power and for the boldness that the gospel brings. But thank you most of all for the love. Lord, that we would stand with others, that we would protect those who would stumble for the slaughter, that we would stand for life. We would stand against abortion and the killing of babies. We would stand against murder. We would stand against what you stand against and before what you are for. And we would be witnesses that stand with you because you're standing with us. That we would have a relationship where we stand in the victory of the blood of the cross of Calvary until you come. We give you praise. In Jesus' name, amen. The Lord bless you.
You too. What was up with that?